Welcome to Sharing Success, the podcast where we turn inspiration into action. I'm Tysen Creager, your host, here to guide you on a journey of growth, motivation, and self discovery. In each episode, I'll share powerful lessons, actionable tips, and uplifting insights to help you achieve your goals and create a life you love. Whether you're here to find clarity, build confidence, or simply get inspired, you're in the right place. Let's start building your success story, one step at a time. Hello, party people. Welcome back to Sharing Success, the podcast where we dive into mindset shifts, habits, and tools that are going to help you achieve personal and professional greatness. I am your host, Tysen, and I am so excited to be here with you today, y'all. Today, we are going to talk about imposter syndrome. I know so many of us can relate to this. I know so many of us struggle with this. And guess what? I'm going to tell you just how to tackle it today. First, I want to start by breaking it down. Imposter syndrome is that nagging voice in your head that tells you you don't belong here, you're not qualified, or you're a fraud. It's not just self doubt, it's the inability to internalize your accomplishments. And trust me, this happens to the best of us. Did you know that studies show that about 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives? Yes, 70%, as in 7 out of 10 people. That means that if you're feeling it, most of us are too. I want to share a really quick story, just kind of a little anecdote to back up the fact that imposter syndrome is real, but if you can overcome it, you will be so glad you did. When I first started this podcast, let me tell you, I had so much self doubt. I sat on this for years, truly, thinking, who am I to give advice to others? What if no one listens? People are going to think that I think I'm some sort of guru, which I absolutely don't. I'm a random person on the internet talking. But let me tell you what, over time, I realized that those thoughts were holding me back more than they were protecting me. Today, this podcast has reached so many of you, and I'm so grateful that I didn't let my imposter syndrome hold me back. Instead of asking, what if this goes wrong? I finally asked myself, what if this goes really right? And I'm so glad that I did one day and that I was able to take the leap. Please know that if you are struggling with imposter syndrome, what is on the other side of that is so much greater than you could ever imagine. Now, let's talk about where this comes from. Imposter syndrome is often rooted in perfectionism, comparison, or ultimately the fear of failure. Maybe you grew up in an environment where success was tied to external validation, or maybe you're entering a space where you don't see people who look like you or share your background. There's a lot of factors here that can magnify those feelings of doubt. Let me tell you, it's a real thing to feel that way. We are always comparing ourselves to other people. The thing to remember is that imposter syndrome is a liar. It's absolutely not an accurate reflection of your abilities, your strengths, who you are on the inside, and what you're capable of on the outside. It's honestly just your brain's way of reacting to discomfort or growth. The fact that you're feeling it means that you are challenging yourself, which is a good thing. I want to dive into the actionable part now. Let's talk about some strategies to overcome imposter syndrome. I want to give you 5 of them that are going to help you silence self doubt and start becoming your biggest cheerleader because that's absolutely what you deserve. Step number 1, we need to recognize it. This first step is awareness. And you know what? I'm going to put in a little something right here. Y'all, if you are at a place where you're just chilling and you can take notes, do it, or even make a mental note, because these steps are something that you can refer back to in those times where you're really doubting yourself or you're unfairly comparing yourself to other people and their progress. These steps are going to help you overcome imposter syndrome when you need it the most. Anyways, back to our scheduled programming. Step one is recognizing it, that awareness of it, right? I want you to pay attention to when those negative thoughts creep in and call them out. Say to yourself, this is imposter syndrome talking. It's not me. The key takeaway here is that naming it absolves it of its power. You are not going to give it the time or attention it deserves any longer. Something else that I want to kind of expand upon here when we are recognizing it is I have found, at least through talking with friends and through doing my own inner work, that a lot of the narratives that we hold about ourselves, a lot of the preconceived beliefs that we have about ourselves actually aren't true. They're just a product of conditioning in our childhood, or maybe some things that people told us about ourselves, and we just automatically went with it. We automatically said, okay, this person said I'm this way, so I am. And then we use that to justify our actions throughout our life, right? Please call out those behaviors, those thoughts about yourself, those labels that you give yourself that are no longer accurate. It's okay to challenge these things. For example, say you grew up in a household where you were always called lazy. And so you just grew up thinking, I'm lazy. I don't take charge. I don't take action. When something happened in your life to reinforce this, like you sleeping in a lot, missing the alarm for work, you just told yourself, yeah, I'm lazy. It's just how I am. Guess what? If you got real with yourself and you realized that all of your actions that are supporting the fact that you're lazy, they're coming from this root of somebody telling you that when it wasn't even true. And you just attached that label to yourself and you went with it when that was not your label to carry around. So please make sure that you're checking the thoughts and the feelings that you have about yourself. Make sure that they're genuinely coming from you and nobody else. Because a lot of our imposter syndrome is coming from these negative feelings that we have about ourselves. And we don't even realize that we weren't the people that embedded these feelings into our mind in the first place. Please, please, please remember that when you are recognizing your imposter syndrome. Step two, we want to celebrate the wins. We often focus on what we have not done instead of what we have accomplished. I want you to start keeping some sort of success log. Okay. So this could be a journal that you physically write in. This could be a note on your phone, something where you are cataloging your daily wins and your weekly wins, no matter how small. We had a guest on this podcast last season. Her name was April. She's amazing. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back and do it. But she talked about something that she does every day is before she goes to bed at night, she writes down her 3 wins. And that way she goes to bed feeling accomplished, even if the day was completely just a failure, right? She reminds herself before she goes to bed, no, actually, it wasn't a failure because I did do these 3 things. And that's something that I want you to incorporate. I want you to start celebrating yourself. No matter how big, no matter how small these wins, hype yourself up. Did you complete a project? Did you go outside of your comfort zone? Did you meet new people? Did you do something scary? Guess what? Celebrate it. You need to be your biggest cheerleader, especially when it comes to combating imposter syndrome. Step three, we want to reframe our failure. Instead of seeing failure as the proof that you're not good enough, I want you to see it as evidence that you're trying, you're learning, you're growing. See it as evidence that you love and respect yourself enough to get out there, to put yourself out there, to shake things up a bit. That's really big. A lot of people don't do that. I want you to remember even the most successful people have failed over and over and over again. The difference between the most successful people and the people who have not found success yet is they are not going to let their failures hold them back. They are not going to let their failures justify their imposter syndrome. They say, okay, yeah, so maybe that didn't go according to plan, but guess what? I understand that I tried something new. I'm still learning, I'm still growing. My imposter syndrome is a liar. I am good enough. Let's try another take and see how it turns out. So please try to reframe your failures. It's a mental shift that has to happen there. It's not easy, but it's absolutely doable. Step 4, lean on your support system. Share your feelings with somebody that you trust. It could be friends, mentors, family, a coach. Often saying these feelings out loud is going to help you realize how irrational and possibly ridiculous these fears are. And sometimes you just need somebody else to kind of validate you and remind you how capable you are. So don't be afraid to lean on your support system. I don't know, I can't speak for anybody but myself, but I feel really honored when a friend or, a coworker, a family member, anybody like that comes to me with these concerns and they say, "Hey, I don't feel like I can show up in this way. I don't feel like I can measure up." And I get to hype them up. Like that's so much fun for me. So give people the opportunity to really validate you in that way. I think you'll be surprised at how much it builds your confidence and tears down that imposter syndrome. And lastly, step 5, we want to practice affirmations and visualizations. Hang on here, hang on. Before you're judging, before you pull out your little, I'm going to pause because this is a little wooey. It really works. It might feel pretty cheesy at first, but I cannot emphasize how much affirmations work. Let me tell you, affirmations have changed my world. They have changed me inside and out. I want you to practice in the mornings saying something like, I am capable, I am deserving, and I am ready to succeed. Give yourself that positive validation, and if you can, again, I know it's awkward, I know it's a little cheesy, but once you get over the cringe of it all, you'll be very glad you did it. Look at yourself in a mirror while you do it. Speak to yourself. Look at yourself in the eye. Get to know yourself, respect yourself, love yourself. And not only that, when you are repeating, I am capable, I am deserving, I am ready to succeed, I want you to pair that with you visualizing yourself succeeding. Guys, this will rewire your brain. I cannot emphasize that enough. When you think about overcoming your imposter syndrome and your success in the future, when you think about that in any aspect, whether it's making a vision board, daydreaming, doing these intentional affirmations, I want you to not necessarily visualize the you that is now. I want you to visualize your ideal self, right? Walking through what success looks like to you. And I don't know, I just cannot overstate the importance of this enough. Really getting into affirmations and visualizations. Please, please do not let do not let any preconceived notions that you've had about these things get in your way of this practice, because validating yourself, connecting with yourself on this level, and using your brain to create these vibrations and to put out there this ideal version of yourself, it's going to make all the difference in overcoming your imposter syndrome. Now let's talk about becoming your biggest cheerleader. I want you to be able to make that shift from self-doubt to self-empowerment. Here's the key. I want you to learn to be kind to yourself. Sounds easy, it sounds cliche, it's not. That's the whole problem with imposter syndrome, right? Is we're not really giving ourselves enough credit, and if I'm being honest, we're not being very nice to ourselves. I want you to practice compassion with yourself. Think about the ways that you would encourage a friend who's feeling the way that you're feeling, right? And then I want you to turn that compassion inward. If you had a friend come to you and they said, "Hey, I'm thinking all these things about myself," just kind of how we had talked about earlier. Me specifically, I love hyping people up. But just like the way you would hype up that friend who wasn't feeling like enough, I want you to direct that inward. Show up with that energy for yourself. You deserve that more than anybody. You're out freely giving it to people when a lot of that energy you could also be directing at yourself. Please do things to start replacing that self criticism with self encouragement. I want to do a quick exercise together. I want you to take a moment, think about a recent accomplishment, okay? Something that you're super proud of yourself that you did. It could be small, it could be big. Now, I want you to say to yourself, I want you to say it out loud. I worked hard for that and I deserve to feel proud. And guess what? I want you to get a little assertive with it. Say it again. I worked hard for that and I deserve to feel proud. Take a deep breath. I want you to really let that sink in. It feels good, doesn't it? To give yourself that validation, give yourself that pat on the back. Hey, I am the shit. I am a badass. I think that's so important. There's this, I don't know, there's this thought, there's this notion that hyping yourself up and giving yourself the credit you deserve is tying into the wrong side of your ego. It's feeding your ego. When in reality, I feel like that could be further from the truth. If we can hype ourselves up enough to where we see our potential, we see our greatness, isn't that going to inspire us to go out and show others their potential and their greatness? You can't show up for people unless you're showing up as the best version of yourself. And the way to do that is to become your biggest cheerleader. So that is step 5. Guys, I know this was a short one, but this really is just, I cannot emphasize, I would tell you all day long if I could how great you are, but I cannot emphasize the importance of learning how to do this yourself and overcoming that imposter syndrome. It would change your life. If you can remember, imposter syndrome, it's not going to go away overnight, but you can learn to manage this. The fact that you're even here listening to this episode, it means that you're already taking steps in that right direction. Please hear me when I say you deserve every bit of success that you've worked for, and you are more than capable of achieving your dream life. You are enough. Period. Point blank. End of story. You have always been and you will always be enough. More than enough, actually. With that, y'all, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope this is a little pep talk that you needed. If it resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts. I love when people send me a message about, how they felt about an episode, or they just let me know their thoughts. I mean, this is why I do this. I'm trying to give people value, and for people to give me some feedback on that and let me know how these episodes help them. It really means the world. So you can share your experience with imposter syndrome and kind of what's helped you to overcome it uh, by sending me a message, or you can tag me on social media. Or if this episode encouraged you to go out of your way and maybe do something to combat that imposter syndrome, let me know about that too. Please do not forget, if you have not yet, to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It is at Shine with Ty. I would really appreciate that. Whatever you're listening to this on, if you could leave a review, leave a comment, I would love that so much. And please also do not miss next week's episode. We are going to dive into just a candid look about how failures can shape growth and they can lead to success. It's going to be a really great one. With that, I really appreciate you guys listening. I love you so much. I can't wait to hear from you and all the stories about how you overcame your imposter syndrome. Remember, you've always been enough. You are enough. More than enough. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Sharing Success. If you enjoyed what you listened to today, I'd love it if you could take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel for even more inspiring content. leave a review for the podcast, or share this episode with someone who could use a little motivation today. Your support means the world and helps me to keep growing this amazing community. And as always, remember to keep striving, keep sharing, and keep succeeding. I'll see you next time.